Hey guys and gals, it's Will from Kustom Blacksmithing. Welcome back to the channel. Today's episode we're doing a walk around of the shop. Just a quick tour of what I have, what I use, how I use it, where I got it, all that good stuff. Let's get right into it. Alright, this is the shop. Okay, end of the video. No, I'm kidding. First up, we have the forge. I built it myself. No welding. Don't really have the ability to weld here. I can weld, I just, with the electric system going on here, it's not really feasible, even with a 110 welder. Basically, what I have is just a single Venturi burner. How that works is inside there, if you can see that. There's an orifice hooked to the gas line. What happens is that's got about 15 psi going through the orifice down the tube, and these little holes on the side pulls the air in because the air has a lower density than the propane. And what that does is it pulls the air in, mixes with the propane, and then, you know, causes ignition once the propane's lit. Is it the most fuel efficient? No. There are other burners. One in particular is called a ribbon burner. That's probably what I'm going to make for the next forge. This one has issues. I mean, it was my first one. This actual stand here is from an old patio table that broke during a windstorm, and I just repurposed it. And what I got down here on the bottom is just two pieces of angle iron bolted to the frame, and then I used some door hinges with some high temp silicone and some zip screws to screw it to the shell, which the shell is just a 20-pound propane tank. And inside here you can see how it's flaking off pretty good. The reason for that is I actually used the wrong refractory. There is a 1-inch layer of K-wool in there, and then I went over that with refractory, but the type I used was incorrect. So yeah, that's, you know, lesson learned. The next one, I'm probably gonna go a little bit bigger than a 20-pound tank. I mean, it's a good size, but I just want something a little bit longer for the next one. But probably still use some K-wool, but mostly gonna use refractory like I planned on doing for this one. But here nor there. And then because I couldn't weld, you know, I just use some pieces of angle iron to attach the burner to the 20-pound tank and hold it there. And it works, you know. It's not perfect. And all I got hooked to it is just a 40-pound propane tank. I had a couple of 20s all tied together, but that just got annoying, having to change one, then change the next one, and then if they freeze up, you know, it's just a giant mess. This is just a lot easier. Lots easier. So as you can see, there is a pressure gauge right on there, just so I can monitor the pressure coming out of the regulator, because what this does here is it drops it from tank pressure, which could be anything really. I mean, it could go from 0 to 120. That's what I've seen before, at least. I mean, the relief valve's built for 240, so if it goes over 240, then the tank's gonna blow off, but that like never happens. The tank's very safety oriented to not do that. But anyways, what the regulator does is it drops it from tank pressure to whatever I set it to. That's what this handle does. I can turn it up, I can turn it down, doesn't really matter, whatever I'm doing. So if I want it a little hotter in there, I could turn it up, turn the pressure up. If it gets a little too hot, I can turn the pressure down for whatever reason. And then when the tank is either getting low, or what'll actually happen is if I'm using this so much, what'll happen is the liquid in the tank won't vaporize fast enough and the tank will freeze up. The technical term for that is auto refrigerate. Basically what that means is the liquid inside has to boil, but it can only boil so fast. And if you're pulling off the vapor faster than it's boiling, eventually it's just gonna stop. So what I can do is I can watch that pressure gauge and see if it starts to drop out. If it starts to drop out, that gives me enough time to kind of wrap up what I'm doing for the day, and before I completely lose pressure. But done that a couple of times on accident. It happens. While we're over here, these are the saws I was talking about. Lots and lots of saws. So many saws. These are actually all the junk ones. Over here on the couch, those are the ones I plan on restoring. So, like I said before, almost 100 saws. And so far I've only done like 4 restorations. So, I'm not sure what I'm going to do with these junk ones. My most recent thought was make like a bunch of fillet knives out of them. I hate to cut them up. I mean, it does make me feel bad, because you know the last thing I want to do is cut up a unique saw that no one's ever seen before, and I'm just too stupid to realize it. But based on the research I've done, I'm fairly confident most of these are newer, quote unquote newer junk. And by that I mean like 60s and newer. You know, it's just slapped together stuff. Steel's questionable at best. So it might not even make a good fillet knife, but I don't know. If you got a suggestion of what we could do with them, drop it down in the comments. You know, future topics, we'll discuss that later. This right here is a bigger quench tank that I made, just to quench the side sword that is hanging up over there. You can see that. I needed something that was a little bit longer, so I just kind of rigged this up. And then I use canola oil to quench with. It's food safe, plus it's cheap. You know, those 2 jugs were like $3 for the both of them. Over here I got my vise. The vise was given to me by my father-in-law. I offered to buy it off of him, and he said, well, I don't have any use for it, you can have it. And I'm like, okay. I wasn't gonna argue with him. But it's from Buffalo Forge. Buffalo is actually right near me, so it's not really that surprising. I actually use this one quite a bit, mostly because I don't have one on my anvil. You know, it's a decent vise. I wouldn't say it's the most ideal thing in the world, but hey, it works, and it was free. And this hardy hole, it's like half an inch. It's kind of pathetic, not really usable. But if I ever had the motivation to make some hardy tools, I could. So this is my recent acquisition. It's a 4x36 belt sander. The motor that came with it was junk, and I had this old 3rd horse laying around, and it's just not strong enough to move it. So I'm kind of debating what I want to do with it, whether I want to buy a bigger motor. I mean, if I have a bigger motor, then at least I have a bigger motor laying around for when I decide to build a 2x72. Or I could just go to Harbor Freight and buy a brand new 4x36. But I've heard some horror stories from other people, and I kind of like this one because you got kind of a no platen on one side and a platen on the other, and then a smaller contact wheel. But I'm not sure what I want to do with it. I'm still undecided. And then, you know, it has the side here where you could attach a round disc for it. You know, it's not gonna move a whole lot of steel, but it's better than my angle grinder, because that's what I've been using right now mostly. I got these sanding discs with them. You know, I bought them at Home Depot. They're pretty cheap, and the grits are pretty low. So that's kind of what I've been using for like the rough grind, and then I can clean it up with a hand sander, because Yeah, I actually get a lot done with a grinder and a hand sander, to be honest. And then I do have a bench grinder, which I used this for a couple months actually before I decided just to switch to the hand grinder. You know, at least with this, it's got the wire wheel. It helps clean things up before I take it straight to the grinder, because if you try to take the grinder straight to like forge scale, it just eats up the paper. Like it's insane. That forge scale is just so hard. But at least with the wire wheel, it helps knock it down. And then if it's really stuck on there, I can just go right to the wheel, because at least the wheel, you know, those are pretty cheap, and I don't really care if I go through those. But so these are the two hammers I've been using the most. This is what we call a cross peen hammer. I started out with this. It's just a plastic handle, which honestly is terrible for your wrists, but it's all I could afford at the time. I'm gonna end up replacing it, because if you see right there, the head's actually separating straight from the handle, which isn't good. But I'll probably do a video knocking that out, cleaning it up. You know, it was just something to get me by. And then I switched to this hammer over here. This was actually originally a Harbor Freight hammer, just a 2-pound, and I modified it to a rounding hammer, which if you see here has like a rounded face on it. And what that does is I can, depending on how I hold this, I can move the metal in different ways, and then just a regular flat face on the back. And then I adjusted the handle so it was a little, got rid of the varnish on it so it's easier to handle. Plus it's got a really long handle, which I like, so if I need to get more force going, I can. Not that I usually have to, because I'm not doing anything that crazy. Water bucket at my feet. And if you're wondering what that is in the corner, that is my Harbor Freight piece of crap anvil that I started with, which I thought was a good idea. Used it once, it sucks. And I'll show you why really quick. I mean, granted, this is on the floor, but watch this. You see that? See how it just deadens almost immediately? Doesn't do anything. But if we come over here, there's at least some sort of rebound over here, which, trust me, the rebound helps. You know, this is just an old piece of railroad track that actually my grandmother had laying around, and I just mounted it to a stump. You might be wondering what the silicone's for, and actually the silicone helps deaden the sound. It doesn't deaden the rebound, but it deadens the sound. Because before I had that, this thing would ring like crazy. But put that on there, and it makes a world of a difference. The other thing you could do, if this was like a legit anvil, is I have a magnet. If you put the magnet on there, that actually deadens it even more. Like that's with the magnet. And that's without it. I mean, it's not a massive difference. That's kind of why I don't have it on there. But yeah, I mean, if this was like a huge, like 150-pound anvil, I'd definitely have a magnet on it. But then over here, I just got some pieces of wood and what little metal I have. I gotta go shopping. Most of the mild steel, I just get it from Home Depot. It's cheap, it's easy, it's right down the street. But all that stuff at Home Depot is mild steel, whereas over here, this is a piece of 5/8 01 high carbon steel. I ordered this because it's the only place I found so far that I can get it is just by ordering it. I haven't found any place locally that sells high carbon steel, which sucks. But, you know, price wise, I can't really complain. You know, I bought a 3-foot piece of that 5/8 and it was like $20. Nothing to really complain about. Originally, I only bought it for like my punches and my chisels. because I didn't have to do much modifying to it, because this is a hot cut chisel. You know, if I have to split something, I can just hold it there, cut it in half. Pretty easy. Instead of grabbing the grinder or the hacksaw, you know, it's just faster to hot cut it. I do have some tongs. These are like my first attempt at tongs. I don't really use them to hold the metal when I'm hammering. I have a pair of vice grips that I use, which I don't know where those are. I really should clean up over here, but found out pretty quick that rebar sucks for tools. Don't use rebar for tools. I have a package coming. Probably gonna do a box opening with you guys and show you what goodies I ordered, and then show you. Yeah, I'm not going to give too much away. You'll have to stay tuned for that. Subscribe to find out what's in the box. Other than that, you know, I think, you know, I got my apron, of course. I normally wear my FR clothes just as a precaution, but at least, you know, that keeps me kind of clean. If that gets dirty, I don't care. But, you know, PPE is a big thing. You know, I got my safety glasses. You definitely wear safety glasses when doing this. The last thing you want is a piece of, you know, a piece of slag to get in your eye, or, you know, a piece of metal as I'm grinding and come flying at my face. That'd be fun. Not really, but, and got a pair of headphones. They're not specifically OSHA approved, but they actually block out a lot of noise. To be, I was surprised when I bought them how well they blocked out noise. So I use them like when I'm forging and when I'm grinding and that sort of thing. If I'm doing anything like really loud, like if I'm grinding for like hours on end, then I'm gonna put on actual earmuffs. But, you know, if I'm just picking up the grinder for a couple minutes, you know, they work good for that. You might notice the pile of horseshoes. Customer actually gave me a handful of those. I went there to, I forget what I was actually there for, but I noticed he had a forging anvil, and we got to talking. He's like, hey, you want some horseshoes? I'm like, sure. So he gave me some horseshoes and a couple rasps. I've been planning on making a rasp knife, but I just haven't felt like doing that. You know, like I said before, you know, I do what I feel like doing. If I don't feel like doing it, not gonna do it. I got some leather laying over there. I got a big roll of belly right there. I've made a sheath, and actually my wallet, I don't know if it's my wallet, made that myself. You know, leather work's actually fairly easy. Plus, I mean, if you already know how to sew, leather work's like a piece of cake. So we might go over some leather work later on. Other than that, you know, I got a big bucket full of railroad stuff. You know, some, I forget what those are actually called, but they hold down the track. Railroad spikes, a bunch of random stuff. But then inside here, some more goodies. These are actually from a guy who works with CNC machines, and these are the bearings, the things that hold the little bearing wheels inside. That's what those are. And actually all of this stuff is 52100 is the name of the steel. And let me tell you, it is hard. I mean, like, already hard. Like, I annealed some of it to work with it, and it was still a pain. I made one knife out of it, and it cracked on me as soon as I hardened it, because it was way too hard when I went to quench it to begin with. But I'm not sure what I'm gonna do with it right now. I've just kind of been hanging on to it. I don't know, I'll decide what to do with it later. And then I got some wrenches in there, some older ones. I started spreading that one out, but again, that was really hard, and I was really tired that day. I probably should come back to that, but then my two most recent railroad spec knives. But I'll show you over here. The older wrenches are good quality steel. magnet on there, and that's why. I forged this out into like a crappy hatchet. I probably should have used a bigger wrench, but it's just what I had laying around that was old. That's a magnet on there in case you were wondering. I don't feel like pulling it off, but just kind of hangs here because it's useless. I mean, if you look at it, like, it's ridiculously thin. Super thin. So, yeah, that, I mean, you can even see how small it is in my hand. It's next to worthless, but, you know, it was a good learning experience. A good wall hanger. Alright guys, that's it. You know, if you have any questions, drop them down in the comments. Leave a like, subscribe, all that good stuff. See you in the next one.